Me and my mate Dave, he's the other side of the car at this point, and he's looked at me like, what are we even doing, or what is this?
Now I gotta ride or die.
My dream cars are very, very different to other people's. My dream was always to own a mid-60s or late 60s Cadillac. It was one of those cars, and I can't tell you why, but it was always one of those cars that just mad. It was cool design from an era where engine size didn't matter, and it just meant that one day I wanted to get one of these because it was just so cool. And you look at them online, see them at car shows and think, wow, that is insane. And what was actually happening at the time was I was migrating from one job to the other. One job being at Tesco's as a delivery driver, and the other job being a 0 hours contract at a mystery shopping company for vehicles, car sales, stuff like that. And during that migration, I thought, well, I've never had a loan before. Why don't I loan the money? Why don't I go and get a loan and buy this car if I find one? Fast forward a little bit, I'm in an R in, I found one about 40 miles away, so a boat ferry and, you know, say 30 miles away from where I was, where my house was. I started thinking, right, I'm gonna have to get a loan. I'm gonna message your mate and said, listen, I am waiting on some money. It's on its way. I've been pre-approved. It should be in my bank Friday, say. He's like, yeah, that's fine. Had a bit of interest. You do know the car needs a bit of work. And I was like, yeah, I know everything needs work. Don't worry about it. But I was so smitten on the idea of getting this car that didn't really matter at the time. And he said, oh, it's on air ride, but the pump's given up. I was like, right, what we'll do is work into the deal that I won't buy the pump off you, but I'll buy a new pump. But we have to work into the deal. Yeah, that's fine. So I buy a brand new pump for the air ride, so an aftermarket air ride pump. And the money hits my account, and I'm like, mate, I am coming. When can I come and get it? And at this time I had an Audi A3 diesel, kept going in lit mode because it weren't happy. It really weren't happy. There's another story to go into how I got that car, but that's for another day. And yeah, me and 3 mates went and picked this car up. And not one of us had ever been around an American car, driven an American car, owned, worked on an American car whatsoever. So it was a complete shot in the dark to actually go and get this vehicle. It was 7 foot wide, 20 foot long, 7 litre 429, air ride. It was just the maddest thing. I was like, I have to buy this. There's the only opportunity to buy this, I'm going to do it. So we ponder over, got a couple of mates with me, and we get there, and it's laid out on matey's driveway, looking the nuts. And I was like, I bought it, let's buy it, let's go. One of my mates like, hold on a minute, let's just actually make sure it runs. Start it up, runs. Make sure we can get the air ride pump in, because it's not going to actually come off the ground, because it was on air. It was on the ground. It's not going to come off the ground until you put that pump in and it gets some air in it. Okay, let's do that. We wire up the pump really badly in the back. Well, badly on my part, because, you know, bodge it until you get home. And we made it. It came up. I paid the man. Good day out. What a day. And I jump in it. First left-hand drive car I'd really ever driven is a 7 litre 429, 7 foot wide, 20 foot long Cadillac. Me and my mate Dave, he's the other side of the car at this point, and he's looked at me like, what are we even doing, or what is this? I'm like, I don't know, mate, it's cool, don't it? We cut up mate's driveway, and I bought the car from Lymington, so South England, and the roads are so tight through there, and I just remember the fear of probably what was in theory a 20-minute drive probably through some back roads was literally the most fearful drive I've ever been in, because as I'm sat this side with the biggest steering wheel I've ever had in my life, I cannot understand how far away the front is. I have no idea where the back of the car is. My mate Dave is so far away I cannot even, you're talking to him but he's like in a different postcode. And he's like, mate, there's cars coming, like we're on the white line. I was like, mate, I am literally next to the hedge. Like, where is the leeway here? Because there's no room this side, there's no room that side. As trucks are coming, it is just, it's a bad time, but we're getting through it. So we get to Lymington High Street, pull up, no parking spaces. And I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to have to park it in the road, because there's nothing I can do. I can't parallel park this. There's no space. No parking space is big enough. So we actually dumped it in the middle of Lymington, and yeah, cars coming past it. I just wanted a sandwich, you know how it is. So we get to the ferry, because we're on the Isle of Wight, coming back over. It's Lymington and pull up. And I'm a bit hesitant about the battery being okay on the vehicle. So I was like, let's keep it running for a minute. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Let's get some air in the, in the system, do it up and down a couple of times, just make sure it's all good. Bearing in mind, I'd already bought it, I'd already given the money, I've already driven, I'm halfway driving it home. Let's now find out if anything actually works on it. And I remember the first time, Audi's behind it, the Cadillac's there, and my mate's like, oh, shall I deck it and take a picture? And I was like, yeah, but let me take it in, and I'm going to stand in front of it, I'm going to watch it go down. And he's like, psh, like that, and I was like, mate, that looks so good, it's tucking all the tyres and the wheels in. I was just like, this is the coolest thing. This is the coolest thing. And I'm so happy right now. Now, thankfully, we left it running because we went onto the ferry, turned it off, decked it down because you would. Not thinking of, what about if it doesn't come up and what about if it doesn't start? What happens then? What happens if there's not enough battery cranking power to get a 7 litre 429 running again to then put some air in the compressor and in the tank to then lift this thing up? That wasn't a thing at the time, don't worry about it. You just hit 25, you're living the dream. I remember getting in the car, and I'm like, oh my God, it's dead. And it starts, and I'm like, I literally was like, if this doesn't start here, and we were joking about this, if this doesn't start here, how are we getting off the ground? It's sat on a ferry. How is this going to work? Because there's no way of us doing this other than basically taking everyone's time up by jump starting a 7 litre Cadillac on a ferry and then waiting for it to air up. Thankfully that didn't happen. But as I'm driving home, we're back on the island now, cruising along, we're having a laugh. Some more open roads that I know quite well, so I'm a little bit happier with the drive, understanding the car a little bit more and how big it is, driving along. We get to a set of traffic lights and I'm starting to slow down, and the revs, there's no rev gauge, but you hear the revs drop and the speed's coming down, and I was thinking, oh yeah, that's about right, and then it just completely shuts off, and I was just like, it's just shut off. There's like, I didn't do anything, there's no clutch, it's an automatic. What happened there? And I remember rolling up to the traffic lights and just looked at my mate and like started laughing. I was like, what happened then? And he's like, did the key fall out? What has happened here? Like, did you turn it off? Like, I was like, no, it's literally just turned off. So my mate's in the Audi behind, pulled up, and they're like, what did you do? And I was like, absolutely nothing. I slowed down for the traffic lights. So we all get out, pop the bonnet, and I'm thinking, it could be multiple things here. Fuel, spark, battery, it could be anything. I've left it aired up at this time because I thought, hold on a minute, if this needs low loading, one, where I'm going to find a low loader to put this thing on, but, I need to move this if needs be. So we popped the bonnet, and what it actually turned out to be was the coil was getting too hot. They're really close to the engines on the 7 litre Cadillac motors, so that was something I was going to replace in the not too distant future anyway, but on the first real drive back, it got too hot and basically shut the car off. We waited a little bit, probably about half an hour, car cooled down, started up, drove home, absolutely fine. So I was really, really happy with that, but that was one of the first things I actually wanted to change because I wanted it to drive and run as it is and not have that worry of it shutting off when you come back down the rev. It just seemed to be a thing that it did a lot. And yeah, thankfully, it actually fitted in my driveway by inches on both sides, and then it took me a solid 25 minutes to get it into the parking space that I wanted it to be in. Because my driveway at the time came round, I could not for the life of me get the vehicle into the parking space I wanted it to be in. It is, there's got a wall outside, there was a house this side, and yeah, it took me a solid 25 minutes to actually get it in its parking space. I then, subsequently left it there for a week because I was like, I'm not getting that back out for a minute. Waited until the next weekend, changed coil, did a few other things, and yeah, went for a cruise. I remember it being that every time I went out in it, you would at least put 20-30 quid in the fuel tank. These days, you would be putting 50-60 quid in it easily every time you drove it. But yeah, that is the story of how I pretty much blindly bought my dream car on the internet, got a loan, got some mates, and just made it home. Only just.